Be Here in This Moment by Chip Roush. We are about to enter sacred time. We are about to make this time and this place sacred by our presence and intention. Please silence your phones, and as you do so, I invite us also to turn down the volume on our fears, to remove our masks, and to loosen the armor around our hearts. Breathe. Let go of the expectations placed on you by others and those they taught you to place on yourself. Drop the guilt and the shame, not to shirk accountability, but in honest expectation of the possibility of forgiveness. Let go of the thing you said the other day. Let go of the thing you dread next week. Be here in this moment. Breathe. Here. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church Online. My name is Jen Mason, and I am one of our worship associates. Today, we are honored to have Matthew Pargeter-Villarreal take us on an exploration of what is truly meant by the idea of one's vocation. He will share words and experiences of the Quaker author Parker Palmer and lead us to a different understanding of this word, vocation.
As we create and share sacred space together, let us reflect upon what brings us here. We have all come for different reasons, from different decisions, faced different challenges, and shared different love. And yet all of our differences have led us to this space, right here, right now. Some believe we are here for a greater purpose. Others hold fast to a claim of complete coincidence. Others still lie somewhere in between. There are so many differences and barriers between each individual, it would seem at times as though the odds were stacked against us becoming one whole, as we believe different things, live and experience different things, value and hate different things. We are the children of God, the children of the earth. We're fully grown adults here as a piece of the ongoing cycles of the universe, the children of the stars. We all have different definitions and explanations to who or what and why we are. Perhaps all are right. Our revelation is not sealed. Despite all that is different, there is one thing that is certainly the same. Somehow we are all right here, right now. We are growing and changing and discovering all here, all together, sharing the same sacred space we have shared for years throughout generations, albeit in a different medium. Constantly evolving, constantly changing. Let us continue. Let us change and fight together. Let us adapt together. Let us grow together. Let us worship together. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our way. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to illumine our minds, and that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities it brings us. For this, we light our chalice.
firmly grounded in our Unitarian Universalist principles, we have joined together on the path of spiritual and intellectual growth. Please join me in saying our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
When you finally heard that voice and knew it finally called for you, and what was it saying? Where were you? Were you in the shower, wet and soapy, or chopping cabbage late for dinner? Were you planting radish seeds or seeking one last sock? Maybe wiping handprints off a window, or coaxing words into a sentence, or coming upon a hyacinth, or one last no. Where were you when you heard that ancient voice? And did yes get born right then, and did you weep? Had it called you since before you even were? And when you knew that, did your joy escape all holding? Where were you when you heard that calling voice, and how in that moment did you mark it? How ever after are you changed? Tell us, please, all you can about that voice. Teach us how to listen, how to hear. Teach us all you can of saying yes. It has become easier for me to get through this time of global pandemic by not focusing on the things that I am currently unable to do, but rather using this time to take advantage of the things that I can do. This has resulted in the cultivation of what have become several routine hobbies. I am cooking and baking a lot more. I've been watching more movies and documentaries on PBS, in addition to past seasons of the Great British Baking Show, of course. Thursday has become my designated skincare night. And most importantly, I've had the opportunity to start on the reading list of books that I have not had the chance to tackle since I've been too busy with working as a hospital chaplain. One of the first books that I made a point to read was Let Your Life Speak Listening for the Voice of Vocation by Parker J. Palmer. I received the book through a White Elephant re-gift exchange that my church's young adults group had at Christmas. The idea was to bring something that you already had that you wanted to pass along to someone else so that they could find enjoyment in it. As Palmer, a Quaker author, educator, and activist, has served as a great source of spiritual inspiration for me, I was eager to read his words of wisdom. Unfortunately, the small book ended up either shoved to the back of a dusty bookcase or thrown into a backpack with the intention of reading it whenever I had a break and never actually getting around to it. After moving to the Texas Hill Country and placing the book on a shelf where I could see it and remind myself of it, I picked it up and began to read it. I was not prepared for just how profound an effect the book was going to have on me. When we think of the word vocation, we usually think of it in terms of what type of occupation a person does or is seeking to have. Often, this is framed in inherently capitalistic terms. We are interested in the jobs that people do that are going to bring them money that we equate with having established a certain amount of success. But Palmer frames vocation another way, noting that the root of the word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, meaning to call. As Palmer writes, vocation does not come from a voice out there calling me to be something I am not. It comes from a voice in here calling me to be the person I was born to be, to fulfill the original selfhood given me at birth by God. In seminary, one of the frequent questions that you get used to answering from people after your name, where are you from, and what denomination you are is, what is your call story? The question is meant to ask how you came to the decision to attend seminary. For some, they were students of religion and theology in college, and it seemed like the next logical step. Others are the children in a long line of preachers, and their decision to go to seminary is their way of carrying on the family legacy. But for Palmer, vocation at its deepest level is the statement made to yourself that this is something that I can't not do, for reasons I'm unable to explain to anyone else and don't fully understand myself, that are nonetheless compelling. Vocation is, after you've gone through the sometimes long and arduous journey of living life and discovering who you are, the thing that you find yourself not being able to imagine being happy or fulfilled unless you are doing. It is truly what you are called to do because it is your inherent inner self that is telling you that it is what you need to be doing. Perhaps the most impactful part of the entire book is the candor and vulnerability by which Palmer shares his story of how he finally arrived at his understanding of what vocation is. Choosing to leave Union Theological Seminary in New York after his first year of mediocre grades, Palmer ended up completing a PhD in sociology from Berkeley and moved to Washington, D.C. after graduation with the intention of becoming a community organizer. After suffering burnout and finding himself too thin-skinned to make it in his chosen career, he took a sabbatical and found himself at Pendle Hill, a Quaker living learning community outside of Philadelphia. He ended up staying for almost 6 years, all the while struggling with his fears about losing his relevance as a scholar in academia if he did not return to Washington, D.C., and the impact of the community he found at Pendle Hill was what he needed and where he felt called to be. Palmer ultimately decided to stay at Pendle Hill, but not before going through a long battle with depression. He references the people that he encountered along the way that were there for him and had some sort of impact, however small, on his emerging from the specter of depression. One of the people that Palmer met was a therapist that he eventually ended up seeing, who asked him the question, "You seem to look upon depression as the hand of an enemy trying to crush you. Do you think you could see it instead as the hand of a friend pressing you down to ground on which it is safe to stand?" Palmer speaks of how this helped him to completely reframe how he viewed depression, how it was less about himself failing to live up to who he expected himself to be, and more a place where everything was stripped away, and that he was able to confront his true self and be given an environment in which he could truly grow and heal into the person that his vocation was calling him to be. Palmer's words resonated with me because they mirror much of what I found and came to understand through my own journey and struggles with depression and failure. By all accounts, by the time I graduated from high school, I had everything in place to be a successful scholar. I was preparing to attend Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., my favorite city in the U.S. I had received a generous scholarship. I was planning to double major in Spanish and secondary education. Everything was being set up and in place for me to live out the rest of my life, a life that was destined to achieve the success that I had been encouraged to pursue. When I arrived in D.C., much like Palmer, the reality soon became anything but that. I had moved 1,000 miles away from home to a school that was predominantly female, 88% Catholic, overwhelmingly conservative, and whose students came from about 4 states on the East Coast. I was male, Protestant, liberal, and coming from Texas. It became clear a few weeks after student orientation that I was an outsider with no chance of finding my way in. Extrovert that I am, this didn't stop me. I poured myself into my classes and attended social events, and I managed to acquire a group of friends along the way. I even signed up for the freshman retreat that was being held at a campsite in southwestern Maryland. I was determined to make the most of this opportunity and this situation that I had been given. It was the freshman retreat that would prove the most challenging moment of all. In the woods for several days, in a spirit of introspection, and encouraged to reflect upon myself, I was forced to confront feelings surrounding my sexual identity that had been swirling beneath the surface since the summer after high school graduation. After several days of agony, I made the decision that if I was going to be true about the future of my life from here on out, I needed to be honest to myself and to everybody about who I was. So, officially 2 weeks into my freshman year of college, I made the decision to come out as being queer. I also made the difficult decision to come out to the close friends that I had made so far in college. Initially, I received lots of hugs and messages of love and support. This doesn't change anything, they kept telling me. We still love and support you for who you are. I left the retreat feeling dramatically changed, but also hopeful about how the rest of the year was going to go. When we got back to DC, it became clear that everything had in fact changed. As the months went on, the more and more comfortable I became with myself and my sexual identity, the less that the friends that I had confided in became comfortable with me and slowly began to distance themselves from associating with me. I had come out in September of the fall semester. By March of the spring semester, I had no friends left. No matter, I told myself, I didn't need anyone. I can take care of my emotional support needs myself, not realizing that I was not in any fit emotional state to be able to do this for myself. I slowly began to downward spiral. Frustration at my situation led to depression. Depression led to being overwhelmed and tired and wishing all of these negative feelings would stop, which led to my first experience with rock bottom. At the time, I was taking a science class entitled Chemistry for Non-Chemistry Majors. We were talking about over-the-counter drugs like aspirin and acetaminophen, and the professor, for mere trivia's sake, mentioned about how many tablets would constitute a lethal dose of Tylenol. I went back to my dorm room after the class to the bottle of Tylenol extra strength I had in my bathroom, counted out that many tablets, put them into a container, and put the container in the corner of my desk drawer, with the logic that if things ever got to be too much to handle, that this was my way out. I never did use them as my way out. A few weeks later, when I was laying down in my dorm room from what was probably more clinical depression than the headache that I claimed it was, I heard a male voice clear as day in my ear that said, and I quote, "What the F are you doing? Get off your ass and get to the counseling center because you need help and you need it now." To this day, I cannot explain the origin of that male voice. I like to tell the story that this is when I knew God spoke to me, but apparently the divine swears like a sailor if that is the case. Either way, it had its intended effect. I did get up and walked up the hill through the rain to the counseling center. By the time that I arrived, any thoughts of self-harm had been erased from my mind, but they still made me sit down with one of the counselors and fill out outpatient paperwork. For those of you that have never had to fill out outpatient paperwork for suicidal ideation, it is 3 pages of asking questions such as, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? And what are the factors that would prohibit you from carrying through with your plan? It was not until I got halfway through the second page that I realized that this was no longer simply me not handling things well. This was my health in jeopardy. It was the wake-up call that I needed in order to make a change. I made the grueling decision to finish out the year and then moved back to San Antonio. In hindsight, this was not as much of a dramatic failure as I imagined it to be. But at that point in my life, I could not hide the fact that I felt like a complete failure. Success to me had always been presented in this pretty package of once you go to college, you are supposed to continue on an upward trajectory without any interruptions along the way until your end goal of success is achieved. For me, I had taken a complete detour. My chance at life in my favorite city had come crashing down. My future at my dream university had completely blown up in my face. I had moved out on my own and was independent from my parents. Now I was moving back into my old house and my old bedroom with my tail between my legs. And to top it all off, I was starting over again as a completely different person that I did not completely know or could identify yet as myself. Failure had become more than an option. It was the new reality that I was now facing. As it turned out, moving back to San Antonio was exactly what I needed. Being closer to family helped me to feel loved, which helped in learning to love myself again. I got to start over in a brand new school environment at the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, but this time I got to be completely open and honest about who I was. And my fellow classmates and friends accepted and embraced me for it. I even got to be honest about my future. I changed my second major from secondary education to international studies because while I have all the respect in the world for teachers and the work that they do, I discovered that it wasn't for me. I also got to grow up a little. I got to date and eventually lucked out and found the person of my dreams who loved me for me, failures and all. And we were together when we were both able to realize a dream of ours, being able to get married both in the eyes of God and of the world. That's not to say that the road from then until now did not have its share of failures along the way. There were struggles with alcohol that I had to overcome that cost me a career as a paralegal, a failure that I am still not proud of and that I am still learning to talk about to this day. But even in the midst of that failure, I not only overcame the circumstances, but it led me to the career path that I am now on that gives me the most purpose, being a minister. If anything, the time that I have spent at rock bottom has taught me that if you are going to have any chance at success, you need to redefine what success is and what it looks like. For so many years, I operated under the expectation of what others thought my success should look like, and struggled to mold myself to that. But success only comes when you personalize it, make it your own, and when you do so in spite of all of your circumstances. I learned that my idea of success was not material. It was not having lots of money or fancy possessions. It was finding a way to contribute to my community. Once I was honest with myself about that, failure became less about living up to expectations, and it became part of the journey. Those moments when I was forced to stop and ask myself, what am I doing to achieve the goal that I want for myself and my life? Reading Palmer's words of how he came to understand vocation through the ups and downs of his own journey helped to reaffirm to me the same things that I had come to learn through my own low points. One of the most meaningful examples that Palmer uses to illustrate his point is the image of the paradox. In order for the world to open up to us to show us the realm of endless possibility, we have to have doors slammed behind us. Instead of turning around and pounding on the door and begging for it to be opened up, we need to look in the other direction and see that what lies before us is the rest of reality. As my family and I continue to stay safe during this time of pandemic, I am aware that we are in a time of uncertainty in which we do not know what the future will hold, or even what the future will look like. But after taking the time to slow down and read Palmer's words about the need to listen for the call of vocation, I'm reminded that while we take the necessary steps to protect ourselves and our loved ones, it is not a time to bemoan the way of living that we lost. It is rather a time in which we have been given the opportunity to find the way of life that gives our true selves purpose. We are certainly living in a time of paradox, but as the Gilbert and Sullivan song says, it is a most ingenious paradox indeed. May it be so, blessed be, Amen, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste. Thank you all so much.
Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now.
I'm just gonna breathe.
Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages, other countries, other stakes.
Till I touch the sorrow 'neath the rage. I'm just gonna breathe.
Purge the past. Forgive the future. For each comes too soon. Surrender only to this life, this one, this moment here and now. Surrender only to this day, this hour, this breath. Not because it does not constantly break your heart, but because it too beckons with beauty, startles with delight. If only we can keep waking up to this gift. This is the gift we have been given. These body clothes, this heartbreak, it's ours. This pulse, it's ours. This breath, this light, these friends, this hope. All we can do is remember ourselves here.
I'm just gonna breathe.
All a part of it all. Still growing together.
I'm just gonna breathe. till I'm glad to breathe here for a while. We'll give up the fight for some other love. There's hope in the way that you are living. We'll give up the fight for some other love. It's changing, no longer resisting. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. It's gonna breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. I'm just gonna breathe.
We know that your financial contributions to our church come from sacrifice and hard work. We are grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds that we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and in hope. Donations can be given by mailing checks to our church or going to our website, communityuuchurch.org, and clicking on the blue Donate Now button. As our worship time together draws to a close, it is time now to extinguish our chalice. Please speak the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world. Our service has ended, but your service has just begun. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love. Blessed be.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, no far off hymn that hails a new creation. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? While all the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth, and though the darkness round me close,